Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. I am your host, Dino De Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling all right, buddy. As the world continues to look like more and more of an awful place, that's a dark start to this. I just want to say at least the football was good, and so we can try to distract ourselves with that. That's the whole point of this enterprise that we're doing here. So on that note, good to see you, my good man.
Great to see you as well. And outside world, totally normal. Just tune it out. Tons of football. As long as you can find it on all these various streaming sites. Tons of football to be had this weekend. Sunday night is when we're recording it. Another good, maybe slightly better than good NWSL weekend. What do you think of the slate this weekend?
I thought, yeah, I'd say better than good. I think we hit that mark. Some surprising results, some great goals, some great saves. And just to take people behind the ITC curtain, I think there were a couple matches coming into the week where me and you were like, okay, yeah, we'll see what happens in that one. Not that excited about it. I put it somewhere in my notes where I was like, a couple of these matches really, really surprised me with how entertaining they were.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of them outperformed this week. A lot of different places we can get started. With that said, Mr. Grant Engel, where should we get started?
Let's forsake chronological order for once. We're going to try to put on our news hats, and we're going to go from what interested us most. So obviously, in a shocking turn, I'm going to select Seattle Reign FC 2, San Diego Wave FC 1. Speaking of somewhat surprise results.
Somewhat surprise results for sure. A little bit of we had a few clashes of some good teams. This one, two of the better teams, two teams definitely on the playoff course. Very interesting first half. So San Diego obviously starts extremely fast. I think it took, in my notes, I wrote down, I felt like it took Seattle maybe 17, 18 minutes to really get up to the speed of the match. But once they did, it was clear what they were going to try to do. I think they were going to try to kind of defend. And like with all of that firepower that they started with on the bench available as subs, you kind of start to see, this is an interesting game that Laura Harvey's playing. A little bit more athletic, a little bit more dynamic, a little younger. Don't know enough to be kind of nervous in this big spot against a team that's really, coming on quite a tear. And I thought that strategy paid off huge early in this one.
I think you're right. Speaking of getting off to a fast start, we didn't even crack the beverages. Sunday night talking about football, we might as well get there.
Gracious. I thought I felt a little parched.
Cheers to you.
Cheers. Hydration.
Absolutely. Main ingredient is beer, or main ingredient in beer is water. Definitely butchered that line. It's all right. We're keeping it moving. So anyway, I'm glad you mentioned Laura Harvey and some of those adjustments, because in the post-game press conference, she said that she thought San Diego Wave had been the best team in the league this year, and kind of talked about how she was obviously happy with the win, happy with the performance. But she also brought up the way she feels about this roster is that in some spots, and maybe a lot of spots, I don't want to misquote her, but she had said that they need to be a team that kind of sits back, plays a defensive style, but then gets out and runs hard on the counter. Mm-hmm. And one of the answers she had gave, it was I believe she gave it to the great Susie Rance of Sounder at Heart, friend of the show, which she had just kind of gave a little bit of a joke answer when Susie was asking about like controlling the midfield and what was the strategy there. And Laura Harvey started the answer by simply saying, run, in terms of the advice that she gave to her squad. So, it seemed like they were just fine with Wave having more than 60% of the ball. And Wave was certainly happy to oblige that, looking at their playing style this season. There were some nervy moments in there, but they relied on trying to clog up some of the channels and then rely on Dickey making some good saves.
That's definitely what we saw. We also saw, a Norelia Mondesir in the midfield, total wrecking ball, not afraid of anything. And I think, it was wild to see that super crunching challenge on Pearl Moroni. That was like very, very borderline for sure. I think, that call could have gone either way. And then obviously the goal comes minutes later. And I think at that point, you just start to feel like you understand the like the tenor of the match, like, because you know how the Wave wants to play. They want to possess, they want to connect passes, they just want to keep you on your heels. And then you kind of know how Seattle wants to play, from the Laura Harvey tidbit that you mentioned. They want to defend, they want to run, and they want to take advantage of those opportunities. And I think, to circle back to the point that I mentioned earlier, the notion of the subs in this match, Harvey brings on Fishlock, Maddie Darlene, Sam Meza, and Lynn Biondolo in that second half. Leanne Sanderson had a great quote about Lynn Biondolo. She said, quote, "Lynn shoots on sight," end quote, which I just fucking love, which is awesome. And now I think Lynn's kind of evolved her game a little bit, where she also distributes on site and apparently right in the path of good stuff. And I think those, what she's been able to do, passing or shooting on site, I think also paying big dividends.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a fantastic play leading to the Adamas goal. We'll rewind and talk about the Sally Menti goal, the opener. But to your point, Lynn Biondolo kind of turning, seeing what was available, and shooting that pass up front to Jess Fishlock, who Leanne gave it its proper due on the telecast of how smart of a play that was by Fishlock to chest it down into the path of Adamas. Like, she has a split second to make a decision there and to think of not get in her head of like, do I have to turn? Like, am I going to have to put another touch on this? Whatever. It was just, nope, I'm leaving this off for the kid, and she's going to take the ball on goal. We'll see what happens. And Adamas, a little bit of Allen Iverson on the crossover. A lot of sauce on that, and then the confidence to hit the strike.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this show, Emery Adamas. All she does is score really interesting goals at really interesting points in the match. But that was great. 2 touches. Yeah, inside, outside, had the defenders, just kind of, swaying in the breeze. And I think, even the first goal, the Menti goal, I thought was the same. That one, like, same situation. The ball's moving a little bit. You kind of have the Wave defense kind of chasing, and then you kind of are able to come back across the keeper and, just basically manipulate the defense, which is just so brilliant because you have the Wave that all they want to do is get the ball back and then control the ball, hold the ball. So they're just kind of focusing on getting the ball back. And like, I think it's like kind of catching that Wave defense with something that they don't see coming and then doing it twice. And I think the last point that I'll make on the match was, I kind of came to this one with one eye on Seattle for sure, but probably an eye and a quarter. And I know that kind of the math doesn't math on that. But an eye and a quarter on this Wave team, just to kind of see what they would look like at home against a tough defense. But it was clear that Harvey and the Rain dictated the terms of the match, and I think in my notes, when Seattle goes up 1, I'm like, all right, let's see what this Wave team, if this Wave team's like a real playoff team, they'll equalize. And if they're like a real contender, they'll score 2. And like they'll take the 3 points even with 25 minutes with all that firepower. I think I saw that I think Dali and Cascarino are both top. They're 2 of the top 4 in shot creating actions, like some crazy like number. And they both played really well in this one. But it turns out it was Seattle, after giving up the equalizer, who comes back and then jumps ahead on the road. I mean, hugely, hugely impressive. I know that my Seattle enthusiasm hasn't been tongue in cheek, but I think I've been a little bit over enthusiastic just to, kind of have some fun with it. But I think I'm now fully bought in to my own hype machine. This team's good, man. And I think they don't have like the traditional, amazing front attacking unit to be able to score. But I think everywhere else they're solid enough. And my real question is, how far could this team go in a knockout round, considering those limitations and considering, hey, it's knockout football, a lot of different things can happen. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I'm curious, from what you've watched, where do you think this team's at?
I mean, so we've played 11 matches. I think we're somewhere around like the 41 or 42% of the way through the season mark. The only teams that have scored fewer goals than Seattle Reign FC, who have scored 11 on the season, are the Utah Royals with 10, the Houston Dash with 10, and the Chicago Stars with 8. Those would be the bottom 3 teams in the league. Now, on the bright side, the only teams who have allowed fewer goals than Seattle Reign FC, who have allowed 10, are the Kansas City Current, 8, and the Orlando Pride, 8, which are the top 2 teams in the table. So they need that great defense. They need to, great shot stopping, catching crosses, catching aerial balls from Claudia Dickey. They need that organized defense who won't be afraid to play physical when they need to. But if you look at a ceiling for a team that has a real difficult time scoring, it's probably the first round of the playoffs, or maybe you nick one and make it to the semifinal round. But it's still early enough, but it's still a great accomplishment for a team that was playing a lot of young players. I want to comment on Sally Menti. You mentioned her goal before we move on to the next match. Seattle Reign FC supporters may be singing "She's One of Our Own, She's One of Our Own." She is from Seattle. She attended Roosevelt High School, which at this time of night with little to no traffic is probably a less than 20-minute drive from where I'm sitting right now. So she's from Seattle. Looked good out there and looked confident. And in the post-game press conference, Laura Harvey mentioned she likes kind of her attitude and her sense of humor. And Harvey mentioned that when she's drawing up plays on the whiteboard, she's using players' initials. And now, obviously, there are times where she's drawing up a play and you have Sam Meza out there and Sally Menti. So, because obviously Meza's more established, Laura Harvey asked Sally Menti, "What initials do you want me to use on the whiteboard?" And Sally Menti apparently said, "Just put KDB." Which is just so great. I just absolutely love that. And so, and Laura Harvey kind of jokingly pointed out the way she got the ball on the right foot outside of the 18 and hit that banger looked a little bit like Kevin De Bruyne.
I believe it. Yep. Great first goal for Menti for sure. What a way to, crack the seal. Huge win for Seattle. They move up to, I feel like they had a pretty big jump. Now, I guess they're up to 5th, right? Seattle. Yes. The Wave fall from 2nd to 4th. One last quick note on the Wave. Trinity Armstrong. I know you've got your own, superlative future star, center back in Jordan Bugg as well. But Armstrong, unbelievable player, just the same. I think still not yet 18, I don't think. So good that San Diego can totally play a back 3 like no problem. And I know they're going against that Seattle attack, but the future, the ceiling is it's hard to even see. Like I'm looking at, I'm like, is that like Virgil van Dijk? Like, what are we really talking about with a player? She's really incredible. One to watch for sure. I think she'll definitely be on that senior team radar. Before we know it here, it could be 27. She could be trending in that direction. I think she's that good. But I do want to scoot ahead. Yeah. This next match, boy was in the building. Bay FC won. Portland Thorns 0. When I'm in the building, I'm not sure if this is a trend. I'm gonna have to go back and look at this, but all these teams do is win when I pop my head in. But in all seriousness, huge performance. Another defensive, not quite masterclass, but a really strong showing from Bay FC. Very similar approach to what Laura Harvey did. Kind of bend but don't break against a pretty high-powered Portland offense. I think watching Portland live and in person, the first thing you notice, that Moultrie, Coffee, Sugita midfield is an absolute torture chamber.
Yeah, 100%. But Bay FC were kind of able to withstand it. It felt like even with Portland, they had 12 shots, 4 on target in the first half. Like it felt like they had Bay on their heels a little bit. But you guys were just a little relentless with it, which I thought was good. Like, we've talked about this Bay team where, I've doubted the defense, and last season there was good reason to doubt the defense for long stretches. But to see him kind of like fight through it in this match made me perk up an eyebrow. I was like, is something changing over there?
Well, for one, Melanson was awesome, and Caprice Didasco on the other side also awesome. Like Didasco specifically barely did anything wrong. Like it seems like she connected every pass, was in every right position defensively, provided great help when it was needed, because they needed to kind of double. Because I tell, like, Moultrie specifically is like, you leave the door just slightly ajar and she's just busting through it, like the Kool-Aid the Kool-Aid character. I mean, she's just insane. And then Coffee as well. Coffee is like all energy, really hard to deal with physically, super strong, faster, I think, than she looks. And I think she's carried over some of that, like, let me hone my offensive skills further upfield into the club team. And then, right before halftime, Alyssa Melanson just smacks one, like, just runs right onto it. Also her first goal as an NWSLer. So what an incredible way to kind of make that happen as well. Bay goes up 1-0 and they go into halftime up a goal. And I asked, Coach Montoya about this after having been kind of thoroughly outplayed in that first half.
Dino DeCespedes into the channel. Coach, congrats on the big win. You could probably make the case that Portland had the better first half. Can you talk about what the conversation was at halftime? And then obviously you make that big wave of subs, 72nd minute, and now all of a sudden playing on the front foot as well. Can you talk a little bit about what the second half game plan was?
Well, it's interesting because in the first half, I thought we did a very good job limiting their midfield. That was the key. And then, of course, Kaya Hanks on the side, on the left side, was creating all sorts of opportunities. They weren't clear chances, but they were quite dangerous. So we just made an adjustment, making sure that we're a little bit tighter. We're doubling and supporting, and that's where you saw Rachel Hill coming back. You saw Penelope coming back. And the message was the discipline needs to be there because we were good, but we knew we could be that much better. Continue to deny the midfield space, but make sure that we now would double on the wings, and that's what we did. And then they become a little bit predictable in playing long balls. And then their midfield had to go and drop all the way back to get the goal out of the ball. Perfectly fine with us if they have to drop all the way to their back line. So we limited their space in the middle, and we were tighter in the wings.
And can you talk quickly about the Oshuala minutes?
She's been, her last 3 weeks of practice, has been one of the best players on the field. And that's our job as the coaches and as a staff, to reward players that do that. And it's just been, it's actually the best that I've seen her play with us. So she earned it, deserved it, and it's going to be some tough decisions for next week now that we've got Z and we've got Rudy, and we still have Carly that continues to develop. I mean, it's a good problem to have, though. But credit, and I'm really happy for us as that.
Obviously, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I agree with Montoya about Asisa Ashwala. I thought she looked good. I've been out here asking the question, like, why wouldn't you give Kuninaji and Oshwala a run at the same time? And some of our pals in the chat have pointed out, like, Oshwala hasn't looked great through some of these stretches. It seems like in this match, she looked more like herself. Well, what did you see from being in the building?
I thought, kind of like up for it offensively, wanted to make those runs, wanted to encourage, distribution upfield, where you just kind of start the run, you do the point, you make the whoop, like you make the little sound, to kind of let them know that you need the ball, and was aggressive when she got looks, and I think she puts a rocket up the crossbar in the 9th, a couple other shots, and this is a player that I don't think had logged a shot in like a crazy amount of minutes. I think she was like up in the 200-minute area without logging a shot. So it was just kind of good to see her, get off the shot schneid there, and she definitely had an effect on opening things up for like Taylor Huff behind her and some of the other attacking players, to be able to make stuff happen. And then obviously Melanson gets the goal, and we get maybe the worst goal call of the NWSL season. We get.
So you're obviously in the building for that. I'm watching it from home.
Yep.
You know, it took it. I'll say it did take me a second to realize that the ball was in the back of the net because it was a weird angle. It was a tough angle from Alonso, which makes the shot even better, as you pointed out. It's a great shot from her. She roofs it, and it's just like one of those where you're like, wait, did that hit like on top of the net, or like is it, did it like carom off the side or whatever? Is it like one of those weird looking ones? And aside from that view, it was difficult for me to discern what happened based on the commentary.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. The ball was, and I quote, driven across, long pause, and then San Jose, mini pause, is rocking on that goal. Mm-hmm. End quote.
That was what I heard, yes.
That's what happened. That's what you missed. So hopefully that clarified it for anybody that missed it, or that really pieced everything together. But no, in all seriousness, I think the team is maybe broadcasting remote, which could make it a little trickier if you're trying to watch it on TV and figure out, okay, what am I actually looking at? You don't get the crowd reaction from being in the building, I believe. And, at the end of the day, I've said, I don't know, maybe thousands or maybe tens of thousands of things incorrectly at this point in my podcasting career. So who am I to talk, really? But that one was pretty rough. That one won't make the DAZN package, the written in the stars DAZN package.
Yeah, not quite, but no, it is a great point. I mean, especially if the team is broadcasting remotely, I could see why there was maybe a little bit of hesitation there. It was kind of jarring the way the call happened, though. It was like, especially after it happened, I was like, oh, wait, that's a goal. And then once you see the replay, you're just like, oh, it's not just a goal. It's a banger. Like, it's an absolute laser by Melanson. That's unfortunate, but I'm sure JP Dellacamera will get him next time.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. Big win for Bay, as mentioned. They move up to 8th now. They're 4-3-4. They've won 2 of their last 2 straight clean sheets at home. And they move up from 11th place into 8th, as mentioned. Just 1 point behind 7th place Portland Thorns. So, playoff race kind of heating up. There was some talk on one telecast, I can't quite remember, on whether, actually, it might have been Mike and Leanne. We're talking about, is it too early to talk about playoffs? And I think Leanne kind of was like, yeah, I mean, come on, get real. But I mean, she needs to get real. We talk playoffs after like 2-3 weeks. Start looking at this. Come on, man.
But Leanne, have you considered if the season ended today?
I mean, it's a fair exercise. Exercise.
Always.
Anywho, okay. Bay took care of business. Very impressive. Let's move ahead. Another one of my teams. Maybe my team. Former team. Our team, the Orlando Pride.
Team at the very least. It's slowly moving my way more and more every day. Just for our pal Ad Astra, just keep in mind where Dino was while Orlando Pride was playing the Houston Dash and what I was watching live. Let's just say for the record.
I'm just picturing the FOP mob possession graphic just like sliding your way. Anywho, Pride won, Dash nil. Orlando's attack, I think, look really potent in this one for the first time in a good while. 22 shots, 8 on target. That's the most since the week 1 opener versus Chicago. Crosses 32-11 for the Pride. Corners 11-1 for the Pride as well. 10 different players for the Pride attempted a shot. 7 with a shot on target. The thing that I was most excited about, in addition to just kind of like committing more players to the breakaway, and I think this is where Seb Hines kind of earns his paycheck, because this is an offense totally sputtering, not really kind of able to get it right. So what does he do? You get the Houston Dash coming to town, a team that's not the most frightening offensively or defensively. And your response is, I'm not going to start Banda. I'm not going to start Marta. I'm not going to start Angelina. I'm going to give a whole new attacking unit the opportunity to kind of go out, cut their teeth, get minutes, develop some chemistry. Because I think those players, Banda and Marta specifically, are so... I mean, Marta is larger than life. Banda, almost there. We're kind of splitting hairs on what we're talking about here. It is tough, for players to kind of rotate around them, whether it's a Julie Doyle or Ali Watt, Limos. Like, you take your pick, and like now you've got to kind of slot in, and you've got Marta here and Banda here, and you have to deliver. Not saying that you can't, but you're not really playing freely, right? And I think what Seb did in this one is like, let's put these players out, and now it's just go. You don't have to get the ball to Banda immediately. You don't have to get it to find Marta immediately, get her the ball. Like, just cook, just play, just find opportunities, find chemistry. And I thought first half a little slow, second half really got cooking, but I loved the approach from Hines there.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point to make. I mean, obviously, coming off of international duty, there were a lot of decisions to be made and people you want to try to protect, and you need to rotate your roster. We saw it in a bunch of the matches all across the league. I honestly, Laura Harvey, real quick to rewind, Laura Harvey mentioned this in her press conference as well, that players coming off international break that may have played on a Tuesday should not be playing in Friday matches. I thought she was spot on there. I totally agree. I think you should have at least like 3 days, like 3 full calendar days before you play again. So like managers were just left to like make some decisions and consider travel and all that. But to your point, I maybe alongside your point, I liked what Houston Dash did in that first half where, they, on their side too, they didn't have to deal with larger than life, the greatest player who ever lived, Marta, and one of the greatest players alive right now, in their prime, Barbara Benda. So like they were able to hold it to 50-50 possession in that first half. Like they were, when it was, Orlando Pride had 6 shots to Houston Dash's 4. But Houston was able to have 2 shots on target to Pride's 1. Like they were holding their own out there. 22-year-old Swede Evelina Duljan, she like corralled a corner kick like at the far post and played it across the face. And I was like, oh, okay, they're doing something out there. Like they didn't have Avery Patterson, but the cavalry came on after halftime, and Orlando Pride started looking a little more Orlando Pride-ish from that double winning season. I'm not saying all the way there. I'm just saying at least in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think just look at. I'm gonna recount the couple of stats that I think I fixated on the most. 10 different players attempted a shot, 7 with a shot on target. And I think like the you're just looking at the players I'm looking at are like Limos and Summer Yates. Obviously, Julie Doyle working her way back. Ali Watt, we already know like maybe what her role is and like kind of what her capabilities are. But Limos and Yates, I was very curious about what they were going to be able to do. I thought they were impressive. But yeah, when ITC Hall of Famer Corey Dyke steps on the pitch, and replaces Carrie Abello, one of the players that logged some big time U.S. Women's National Team minutes. Some changes were in the air. I'm going to read you a couple stats, from the legend. How about completing 35 of 36 passes, 45 minutes? She just missed a single long pass, which FBref qualifies as a pass over 30 yards. So yeah, we'll cut her some slack there. And 6 shot creating actions for Corey Dyke. And that was all on the way to just burying the winner in a match that I would say they needed. I think Orlando needed this result, but I think more so they definitely had earned this goal from the pressure and the potency of their offense over the course of the day.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And you obviously talk about a friend of the show, Corey Dyke, ITC Hall of Famer Corey Dyke. We mentioned it on Blue Sky, who joined us like right as the playoffs. I think it was right before the quarterfinal. Was super generous with her time and super cool with us. So it was nice to see what happened at the end of this match. But part of Orlando's identity was ratcheting up the defense as well. So according to our pals at FootMob, Houston Dash's accurate pass percentage in the first half was 87%. It dropped to 79% in the second half as they were losing the possession battle too. It was 50-50 in the first half, and it was 62-38 in favor of Orlando Pride in the second half. So they just started to tighten those screws. And like I said, play more Orlando Pride type of football. And, I want to credit Abby Smith. She had to
boy.
have a nice performance in that second half.
Real nice. He had a big time performance.
Yeah.
Had a lot of work to do. I think what end up with seven saves off of 8 shots on target, and then was absolutely devastated when the final ball goes through. She kind of like just slams the floor with 2 hands, and that one hurt to see, just because she put in such a monster effort, and then you walk away from this one with no points. That's definitely tough. And then also want to call out Anna Morehouse. Congratulations for the call up. You already know what time it is. That was a goal that Anna Morehouse set out prior to the season. So congratulations on hitting that. Anna, going to be excited to watch you here in a few weeks when the Euros kind of get cooking. And then Emily Sams completes 90.1% of her passes on the day, including 51 of 52 medium range passes, 9 passes to the final third to lead the team, leads the team in touches, leads the team in tackles. Just all around badass. I mean, I think I think one of the better Sam's games I think that we've seen this season. So, a good opponent for your defense to kind of round into form, but all you could do is kind of play the team in front of you and get it done. And then, I was just excited to see the Pride grab a late winner here.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned it with Gurma when we were talking about the U.S. women's national team, but when your center back, they just have like a quiet, consistent performance, and you don't have to say like, man, they made goal-saving tackle after goal-saving tackle. It's usually you're in better shape because your center back is just being a dominant defensive player and trying to snuff out those things before things get too dangerous. So yeah, good performance all around, obviously on the Corey Dyke goal. Unfortunate for Abby Smith. It takes a ricochet off a longtime Canadian international, Sophie Schmidt, to, not really give Abby Smith any chance at saving it. So it's a bummer for them. It's obviously a bummer for the world's greatest Houston Dash supporter, Big X the Hug on Blue Sky, Mr. Goog, and other parts of the internet. So sorry for that, pal. Hate that it had to happen to you, but obviously this is a pro Corey Dyke podcast. It's pro Orlando Pride podcast. It's unfortunate that one of our pals had to be caught in the crossfire. I want to just ask you a quick question. Orlando Pride, 19 goals for after 11 matches this year. At this point last year, how many goals for do you think they had?
I'll say 23.
Close. Only 20. Just one more. Which is funny. They started the season. I'm going to try to do this from memory. I think it was they started with 3 straight draws, and then I think it was a 6-match winning streak somewhere in there.
I know the streak got started before Benda got there. I think she got there 8th or 9th match, so somewhere around that. Good.
So, sorry. So I just think, we think about like this dominant double winning season. They were invincible for so long. Yeah. It just kind of made me chuckle that it was like, okay, one more goal for than compared to last year. Orlando Pride, as we sit here today, they have 8 goals allowed after 11 matches this year. At the same point last year, what would you guess? How many goals did they allow after 11 matches?
After 11, I'll say 6.
10.
Whoa.
They gave up most of their goals early in the season. I was surprised by that too. I looked at the math 3 times, man. And so please, anybody in the chat, if I butchered that, please let me know. But I believe their 11th match was against the Portland Thorns, their first fixture against them, before obviously the weird one that ended the invincible season. But yeah, they had already given up 10 to that point. And then I think as we got way late in the season, they were only at like 14. That's when Morehouse started to really rack up the clean sheets.
Yeah, I think I remember 13 really late.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, not too far behind the pace, but this is one of those things where like the numbers are the numbers, but we also watch the games, bro. So we're kind of seeing how this is shaking out. They're not as dominant as they were last year, but it is important to remember that they kind of ramped up to it last year too. So it'll be interesting to see how the season progresses.
Yep, great point. Another great reminder that, and I think at this point last season, Kansas City Current was definitely the talk of the year, and it was pretty much who's going to finish in second. It became most of the discussion. Speaking of those Kansas City Current, how about Gotham 1, Kansas City 2? Big result for Kansas City. Gotham teetering dangerously in the pretender category. In another age-old game of contender versus pretender. Where should we start with this one?
I got to tell you, what a professional segue by you to go from Kansas City and then into the Kansas City match. San Jose is rocking from that segue that you just gave. That's professional broadcaster stuff. So
appreciate that.
So Gotham, I don't know, man. The Bats, I'm not selling my stock yet. The first goal they give up, it's on a bad mistake. It's on a let me make sure from my notes here. It was the Sonic giveaway. And I just want to point out that on the broadcast angle from that, when Sonnet gives the ball away, there were 4 teal shirts in the picture and 3 black Gotham shirts in the picture. And it didn't look like Sonnet in that moment. And I don't think she really had like a great opportunity. It would have maybe been tricky, but she wasn't even looking at Katrinberger as my fourth option to have back there, or my third option really. So it ends up falling to Tamwa Chewing, the reigning league MVP, who dishes it to Michelle Cooper, a member of the U.S. women's national team.
That's unfortunate.
You're in big trouble when you do that. So their first goal is off a bad mistake. And then the second goal, you just got beat on that goal. So it's just kind of like, it's not just you're playing super poorly. It's like for Gotham, if you're looking at this, are you concerned that you're playing a team that just might be better than you?
It's interesting. I mean, this match probably swung the most wildly, where it's like, all right, is this team better? How good is this team? How good is that? How not good is this team? And this was a very confusing match, even from the outset, like when Kansas City jumped out to the 2-goal lead. I also want to call out, it's kind of easy to pile on Emily Sonnet in that moment, but and shout out to the NWSL producers. When we do these replays, I need a little bit more than just the boot going through the ball and then the ball going in the net. Like there's so much important lead up shit happening. And it's like, it'd be nice to just kind of see how these pieces go to, happen. A very important moment here. Neely Martin's got the ball and Bia is sort of lingering one of those teal jerseys in the mix. And as Neely Martin's going to get it back to Katrinberger, Bia's just close enough to kind of like scare her. And right as the motion starts, Bia darts into the passing lane. And it would have been an instant goal. And then Neely Martin kind of pivots and then takes a touch upfield to kind of like, she's like, oh, no, I'm not going to go back to Berger. I'm going to go upfield. And that starts the whole domino effect. And then seconds later, Chewing goes on the ball. And it's like, so like you could look at Sonnet. Sonnet was the one that got the last touch. But that whole, sequence was an absolute mess defensively. And I think even 5-10 seconds before, Sonnet was pointing the other way. She didn't want to go back to Katrinberger. She's like, come on, let's not be dumb here.
Yeah.
And then the goal happens like 30 seconds later. And then, just a few minutes after that, they're down 2. But then kind of cooled off and Gotham maybe slid into the driver's seat of this match. I mean, I don't know. What was your take, on kind of like the bounce of power here?
I think Gotham had their chances, but one of the things that I wrote like in my notes during the match is that they just couldn't really get out of their own way in some spots. Mm-hmm. So Sonnet misses a header that's pretty close. I mean, if she's not standing on the top line of the 6-yard box, like she's standing very close to it, misses the header wide. That's going to happen sometimes. Then on a corner kick, she fouls the absolute hell out of Claire Hutton on the corner kick, but knocks home the header. But in typical Sonnet style, which we love her for this, for the U.S. women's national team, is like looking at the ref like, what Oh, I did. You're saying I did what now? When you see the replay and she's two hands shoving Hutton to the ground before she headers it, like you could tell, like as soon as it happened from the angle, I was like, okay, clear. I am the obnoxious guy. I try not to like yell and scream during the matches, but as that one happened, I simply said, "Clear foul on Sonnet." Like that was very obvious.
Yeah, no, that one, and that one was the first in a sequence of 2 or 3 calls that go against Gotham and in like sort of high leverage moments. You know, maybe a handball, maybe and I don't think any of them were egregiously incorrect, but they just kept mounting. It's like bad juju and bad karma. It's just like, Jesus, how many times do we have to like score a goal or nearly score a goal to kind of make this work? And it's so funny because with all of that, all of the ref talk and like the fouls and what was this with the potential VAR? I think we had a couple different VARs. I think I heard a VAR chant at one point.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, what is this?
I heard the same.
I mean, talk about, just not being able to recognize what world we're living in. I mean, that's just moves to the top of the list. But the wildest result here, the XG in this game, well, the final score 2-1, Kansas City. XG, Kansas City 2.0, Gotham 1.0. So we got like perfect. It's like a solar eclipse, just perfect alignment, the sun and the moon. And I don't know, for one brief moment, the nerds and the eye test watchers of the games, bro, can enjoy football arm in arm, and agree that this one was in fact 2-1 to the current.
I like the idea of the nerds being like, "Yep, saw it the whole way, expected it, expected the 2 current goals, expected the Gotham goal." That's how that works.
You know what I saw with my eye? 2 goals to the current, 1 to Gotham.
XG equals real G.
Oh, it's beautiful. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do we leave it at that? Let me just say something about the bats. So I think you're right. Like, obviously, there was the Esther offside call. Jace played the ball in. There was a header from Ellie Wheeler that like goes back to Esther. We've talked about it's like Law 11 in the international football rules. That like if it's like a deliberate play to like play the ball to somebody else, then Esther wouldn't have been offside, but this one was waved off because it was not a deliberate play. It's basically just Ellie Wheeler just getting contact on the ball and not trying to play it to anybody in particular. She's just trying to clear. So because Esther was at an offside position when that pass was played in, just because Wheeler touches it doesn't make Esther back on side. So that gets waved off. But obviously nobody's thinking about Law 11 from the crowd. So yeah, you start the VAR chants and you start booing the referee. I just want to say, even with some of that stuff, so, maybe you could say if you're Gotham, you're unlucky, et cetera, et cetera. You can't have too many more not our day type of performances. Right now, they're 3 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses. You need Rose Lavelle to round into form for the last 57% of the season or whatever's left. You need Midge Purse to continue coming back from her injury. She's played limited minutes since coming back, about 330 minutes of the available 990. She looked like she picked up a knock toward the end of the match. Hopefully it's not too serious. I haven't seen anything as of yet. But it's not quite nervous time for Gotham FC, but they go to Utah for a Friday night match next week. Then they're at home for your Bay FC before the July break.
That's an L.
And then when they return from the international break, they play at Chicago. I think if you're the Bats in that 3-match stretch, you gotta get at least 6 points to keep yourself in this thing.
They're definitely on the out. I feel like the talent that they have is tantalizing. That's the problem.
Yes.
It's like they've got so many great players. Jace in this one was awesome. You're just like, okay, how do you stop that player? Esther, was causing a little bit of trouble. Outside of that, though, they weren't able to get too much going. Midge Purse, an absolute 0. in this one. They needed something. They needed something from Purse. Didn't get anything from Purse. Lavelle came on. I thought looked really exciting. You talk about rounding into form. I thought Lavelle looked solid, looked really good, and almost kind of ready to go. It'll just be a matter of like, okay, now as the minutes start to add up, the endurance level start to, it's like, where does the conditioning kind of go from here? So that'll be something that they need to figure out. But, you look at 11 shots, just 2 on target. You just forced Lorena into just 2 saves, and neither of them were super duper tricky. I mean, the calls, the calls aside, like I said, I don't think any of them were egregiously bad. They were all like in the 65 to 30, 65, 35 to 50 range. And they all just kind of happened to go against the Gotham, and probably rightly so. But they definitely got to figure it out, just because I think, the league is evolving, and you watch, like, just watching Bay, from where they were last year, watching Seattle from where they were last year, watching the league kind of catch up to that Orlando defense. You look at that Orlando defense. It's not like you're like, oh, well, they've got this player injured, this player's out, and once they get back, they'll get back to it. No, they're all there. It's like, like it's hard to just keep doing this and playing in a dominant fashion. And, there's only so much time window you can keep flashing that 2023 NWSL champion graphic when you show, Amoros, or you show Gotham. It's like, that's going further and further in the rear view at an accelerated pace. We need to start talking about this team as a team that, you could see some bigger changes. And I think, we talked about the personnel changes too in the offseason. Takes a minute to kind of get everything to gel, but it doesn't look like it's trending towards gelling.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair way to look at it. 40 whatever it is percent of the way through the season, I think they can make their arguments of like, hey, give us a little more time. Sorry, 42.3% of the season we are through. It's still, I'm such a nerd, it's still up on my Apple calculator app, the 11 divided by 26. I opened the calculator to make sure to do the math, but it's still, the formula is still sitting there on the calculator. So 42.3% of the way through the season. I'm not selling all my Gotham FC stock, but I'm monitoring the situation very closely.
Yep. Yeah, but monitor closely if you can. We're roughly 42.3% of the weekend slate, so let's keep it moving. We're at the 48-minute mark, so we'll try to sprint here a little bit.
Speed round.
Washington Spirit 3, North Carolina Courage 1. I'll kick it to you, my friend.
I thought it was a cracking game of football. I understand the scoreline doesn't really, totally reflect that.
That's a fairly cracking scoreline.
Yeah, I would say. I think that's totally fair. I thought. Sorry, I got lost there.
What'd you think?
What did I think? That's the real question.
Well,
no, sorry.
I'll go ahead.
Can we edit this part?
No.
Okay. No editing. All right. Sorry. I got totally lost in my notes, dude. Just a fucking disaster. Okay. Leader of the show. Thank you. Anyway, on my notes, what I wanted to say is I thought Brittany Ratcliffe and Courtney Brown played fucking great. And obviously they combine on, a goal each, and an assist. But Ratcliffe was all over the field. She played well. On defense, she had some key interventions, and then she was a nightmare on the attacking side. The Courage just had a hard time coping with those two.
Yeah, I think the Spirits, another team in that like talent boon kind of category, but and it's funny to juxtapose those two teams, like trying to put it together. Also, Spanish managers on with both of them. I think the Spirits doing a slightly better job getting the most out of this unit. A couple things that I thought about, obviously Bethune, impossible not to notice on the return. And then like the Yona Giraldes like kind of weirdness. I don't want to, like now that I don't want to speculate, but Hidalgo announces he's leaving. I didn't think that the team looked that much incredibly better when he took the helm. This is obviously like a loaded team, and it was like, all right, now where is this team going to go? Maybe that's my fault for kind of raising expectations too high. I don't think this team looked really any better with Hidalgo, and now with him on the way out, I don't know. I think this is a good performance. I think this was like probably, I'd say, a slightly better performance than I had been expecting, considering the Spirit results coming into this one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Gonzalez was something in the ballpark of like
he was great.
10 wins, a draw, and 4 losses or something, like before Geraldes made it over there. He was somewhere around there, I think. So yeah, I mean, I think the team has a lot of talent. I think Mike Watts mentioned on the broadcast that they still had 10 players out or listed on the injury report, and they still fielded a midfield that included Narumi, Hirschfeld, Bernal, and Bethune. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, this is, they're missing Lacey Santos, but they still have outstanding midfielders out there who can pass, shoot, and run and then play some defense. So, the team is still loaded. I want to say from the courage side on the quickness, Manaka's a superstar. That's done and dusted. We've talked about her plenty. Mm-hmm. She's 20 years old. Her ability when she takes that Feli Rausch pass and plays the first touch absolutely perfectly, could not have the first touch any better than to get the ball out in front of her, and then hits such a perfect chip that she completely fools our guy Mike Watts, who thought rightfully so that it must have took a deflection off the defender, because the ball never just pops up like that in that way. And then you could see it on the replay, but she chips the keeper. And it's just unbelievable stuff from her. Obviously not nearly enough. I'm not selling my North Carolina courage stock either, but to your point, this is why both trophies are still very much available for Washington Spirit, Geraldes or no Geraldes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I might be ready to just minimize my position a little bit on the courage. My fourth ranked team, my fourth preseason ranked team coming to the season. I just don't think offensively they've got the firepower. I think Courtney Vine, Sanchez, are just kind of not enough there. And I think they did great. You look at the stats, possession wise. I think they must have been pretty happy. 54-46. They had the shot advantage, 15-7. Shot on target advantage, 9-5. Slight edge in passing and pass accuracy, and then a slight edge with 33 touches in the opponent's box, 32 for the Spirit. So they got into good positions, but ultimately you need a little bit more than Manaka, like I think in this league. And I think you look at what the Spirit's able to do with all those attacking players, and then the goal, Miura's involved, like there's, Kruger's involved later. Like I think Kowasi comes in and she's dangerous. Gift Monday, you've got Bethune. So it's not just that they have talented players, because Gotham's got talent too, but they're able to make interesting connections with these talented players. And I think that's kind of what keeps people guessing. I think that's kind of one thing I'm going to be looking at too. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but maybe the Hidalgo thing was just a bad fit, and this could be some sleeping giant potential with Washington.
I mean, they made the final last year with Geraldes. But I see what you're saying though. Like I think it's fair to say there wasn't like a hugely discernible difference between the Gonzalez matches and the Geraldes matches. So
I think I would go a little further and say I think they looked a smidge worse under Hidalgo's. I think I will say that. And I would go back. I think I'm going to try to go back and see, or maybe I'm sure YouTube commenter might do this for me, but I'm pretty sure that they were better pre-Hidalgo's. I think they looked more dangerous. I think they looked a little snappier. I'm not sure if Hidalgo's kind of came in and tried to install maybe too much too fast and, kind of like overcooked it a little bit. And I'm not saying that Hidalgo was never going to be better or be able to take them to a higher peak. I just don't think he did that during his tenure.
Sure. They lost Bethune after like the 19th match or something, 18th or 19th match, I think, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wish you well inhabiting this island of the Spirit are better without Geraldes. I love it. I love where your head's at. I won't be joining you there, but I'm, send me a postcard. It's an interesting take. And, maybe there's more data that we haven't reviewed yet. And I guess there's more data incoming once he leaves, once the international break hits, once the Euro break hits. And we'll get to see what Gonzalez looks like at the helm once again.
100%. All right, so let's see this one. Last couple of notes here. Oh, my God, the short corner. What are we doing?
You're passionate about this.
I mean, and I think, I wish I had this. I think it was Ad Astra that was lamenting some short corners maybe this weekend on Blue Sky or Threads. But the short corner continues to just terrorize teams that aren't really ready for it. And North Carolina leaves Shinomi on an absolute island and against Mura, and I forgot who was taking that second corner. But basically, Mura is allowed to just walk right in to within like 7 or 8 feet of the post and just scoop one over the top, just pick out Gift Monday. Oh, right there, wide open. I'll just little scoopy scoop there, and just the easiest happen. And it's like, why are we going 2 for 1 against versus a short corner? Just letting a player walk it in, and then packing 9 or 10 defenders against all of their targets. And you've got Kwasi, you got Monday, you've got very elusive players in there. It seems like a bad strategy. Why can't we sort this out?
It's a fair question. I guess it's just like if you send 2 to pressure there. Now, obviously, like you said, Narumi is kind of walking the ball in there. So I think at that point you could send somebody out there to intercept her. But I wonder if teams are just afraid of if we send 2 people out there and somebody is running free in the box, then we have to live with that, and we don't want to face that. I'm not sure. I'm definitely going to be interested the next time the opportunity presents itself. If you want to make a pact, if you want to ask Albertine Montoya, I will ask Laura Harvey as soon as at our next available opportunities. I'd be interested to hear what those 2 have to say.
I'll be like, Albertine, so North Carolina left Shinomi on an island versus a short corner.
What would you we need? No.
We need the context.
Yes, we need the next opportunities in those matches.
Yeah,
we need somebody to play some short quarters.
That would be funny. I agree to that pact. If it comes up, I will furiously jot it in my notes. And if I'm covering a match and you're watching at home and I just miss one, hey, short corner at 46. Ask Montoya as soon as you get a chance. Let's go ahead though. 2 more matches to hit. My Angel City FC 2, Chicago Stars 2. Angel City a little wobbly, I think, at this point. First match under Alexander Strauss. This one ends in a draw. Madness kind of left and right in this one. Got a little wacky. Not quite NWSL After Dark. This one was played a little earlier in the day, but NWSL Dark vibes for sure in this one. After Dark vibes for sure. Anything do we need to take away from this one, or is this just kind of like a run of the mill kind of wacky early June 2-2 draw?
I just it was a weird game. It shouldn't be 2-2 in that spot. If you're Angel City, you have to be somewhat mortified by what happened, especially the fact that you went down 2-1. It looked like you might not walk away with a single point at home against what has been the worst team in the league. M.A. Vignola, what a weird game that was for her. She's part of the Gomes goal where the ball just gets pinched between those two and looks like a pop-up from RBI Baseball on the original Nintendo. That's just makes the whistling sound as it goes straight up and down. Then has a handball that was called off. I think it was a handball. Vignola also smashes the ball off a crossbar and then ends up with a goal. So it ends up with the the decisive goal, as it were, to save the draw. So a weird game from M.A. Vignola. I don't know what to take from this. I was kind of hesitant on how good Angel City was going to be coming into this season. They seem to be proving me wrong. They seem to be on this weird, they have this weird result. But then, as we mentioned last show, Svendis Jane Jonesdottir is on her way. So still, you still can't count them out. You can just got to look at this one, say, maybe at the end of the season, it's one of those that you look at and go, that was weird, huh? And then you just keep it moving because maybe they're better. They just end up looking way better than this.
Yeah, and I think we talked about obviously Giralda's Strauss coming in. That's gonna probably take a minute, and maybe
Bergen's zone.
Yeah, maybe Angel City's thinking about like the long the long game here with kind of getting set up. Yeah. But still, they get a result. I'm just checking here. I just want to double check this. I thought it was Vanessa Gilles, who had been rumored maybe to be possibly coming back. Now official, moving on to Bayern Munich from Lyon.
Right.
So that door's closed. But Jonesdottir, I think, is going to be great. I think a great fit for Strauss too. Could kind of have a little bit of a Leia Schuler type or Damjanovic type situation.
Yeah.
Play that kind of role. So I think, and Angel City's also still within striking distance. Playoff wise, I don't know if this is a team that has like second round or beyond aspirations. I'm sure they do, but if they can make the playoffs, kind of keep one of those 8 spots and make a good showing of it. I mean, we're still early. We're still definitely early enough where that can happen.
They're level on points with your Bay FC and only 1 behind in goal differential. So I think Jonesdottir is going to make a real difference. I mean, she had like that 4-goal game in the Champions League where she was just an absolute beast out there. She looked good playing for Iceland against US.
That was Roma, right? Like I think single-handedly.
It was the Roma match.
Ended Roma, yeah. Yeah, I mean, she's gonna be a good fit.
She's fast, smart, a good passer, everything you could want in a footballer, and has a long runway ahead of her for her career. So it's a great pickup by Angel City. I was skeptical ahead of the season. I think she's going to be a difference maker.
Yeah, and I think needs minutes and is going to really benefit from the extra minutes.
No doubt.
All right, one match to hit: Racing Louisville 3, Utah Royals 2.
That is the
your last match to hit.
That is your confounding Racing Louisville, who just continues to just do stuff and make things happen. Sitting 6th on the table, level on points with Seattle Reign, but 4 behind on goal differential. Emma Sears is pretty good, huh?
Incredible finish. Really, really smacked that one. That was a great equalizer. Before that, though, Brecken Mozingo snuck one in to kind of get things started. Mozingo kind of obviously Setnor gets a lot of the headlines. I think in this one she had three shots, 3 on goal, I believe. Just not quite unlucky, but not quite able to just kind of like break through, but getting chances, involved in a lot of the attack. But Mozingo, 3 goals in Utah's last 3 matches, and she's 6th in shots on target per 90. She always seems to be active early and getting chances and kind of making stuff happen. That just now seems to be getting more consistent. So Utah's got a lot of problems, a lot of negatives that we can focus on, but I think that has been one bright spot. The attack getting a little bit more pervasive, a little bit more creative in what they're able to make happen, and kind of getting a little bit more productive too. Just not able to quite turn into points just yet.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, I think Utah won the total possession battle. Yeah, they were 55% possession 57% possession in the first half, 54% possession in the second half. It's just sometimes they just don't go anywhere with the ball. And it could be, I'm sure it's frustrating for Utah Royals supporters, but they have some young players. Obviously, Ali Setnor is on the ascent. I want to, and in this one, it's a hell of a half hour. The first 30 minutes, it's 2-2, and then we kind of live under those conditions in a cagey match, kind of the rest of the way. Those teams trying to kind of figure out like how can we possibly, can one of us get a winner here? Sarah Weber out of Ohio State University gets it done. First goal in the NWSL, I believe. That I'll tell you, that campaign in rough shape, but a good goal nonetheless.
Better than the Coach of the Year campaign.
That's true. You know what? There's still time though. If somebody gets,
I think I had Hidalgo's, so I didn't do much better.
You know what? That campaign might not be in great shape either. But what can you do? I just want to do a quick look ahead. So Racing Louisville, as we talked about, 6th on the table. Here's their next, or pardon me, I want to look back first. Racing's last 5 matches: an away win versus the Houston Dash, a home win versus Gotham FC, a home loss versus Seattle Reign FC, an away win versus Angel City, and now this home win versus Utah. So that's won 4 out of their last 5. Mm-hmm. And there's a weird quirk for them in the schedule coming up. Their next 2 matches before the Euro break: away versus Kansas City, then home versus our Orlando Pride. Mm-hmm. Then you have the big break. And then they come back, and then they're home versus Kansas City Current, and away versus Orlando Pride.
Oh my God.
So they have these sandwiched reverse fixtures against the 2 best teams in the league. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they're able to come away with in those 4 matches.
It is going to be interesting because it's a funny quirk. They do get the international break in between, and they do get to see those teams, kind of on a back-to-back, like with a little bit of familiarity. I know there's going to be a month plus or whatever in between, but either I feel like it's going to go one of 2 ways. Either it's going to be 1 draw and 3 losses and, minus 8 or 9 goal differential in those next 4 matches, or we might see a little something from Louisville that doesn't really tell you, hey, this is a top team, but this is a team that can win, can get results on a given day. And I think the fact that they can play those 2, and they're just so unpredictable. Like they kind of come up with stuff that you don't really expect. They're still missing some people. I think they came close to another goal or 2 in this one. So, on the right day, I think they could definitely make it happen more so than some of the other teams. Like at North Carolina, I don't think even on the right day, like a lot of stuff has to go right for them to kind of get a result against one of those top teams. But I think a little bit more variance with Louisville. So that'll be an interesting stretch to keep an eye on for sure.
If you are in the front office, or maybe you are an assistant to Bev Yanez, Seattle Reign FC legend Bev Yanez, and working for Racing Louisville, if you get 4 points out of those 4 matches, how do you feel?
I think you got to feel really good. Feel really good. Those might be the 4 toughest on the slate. So what are we really talking about?
If you get 2 points out of those 4 matches, how do you feel?
I think there's a slight tinge of disappointment, I would say, if you get 2. I think you walk away, you're like, we got 2. All right, we took our lumps, not what we wanted, but what are you going to do? I think they're a little disappointed with 2.
Yeah, I think you're right on there. Now, obviously, if you get 1 or 0, you're not in a good way. You're feeling like that's pretty disastrous. But I think 2 is the thing where it's just like, fine, I guess we're not happy with that. But yeah, 4 is the magic number. I think if they can get 4 points out of those 4, I think they're feeling pretty great.
That'd be incredible. Anyway, let's go ahead. Episode calendar. As the hour gets sleepy here on the West Coast. 2 more NWSL weekends in June before the Euros kick off July 2nd. Euros kicking off July 2nd. Here we go. Here we fucking go. We will be covering every inch of that tournament. So make sure you're subscribed. There's going to be a ton to get excited about then. But still 2 NWSL weeks to happen before then. So going to be a lot more NWSL dropping in June. In addition to that, we launched our NWSL collection as part of our Linktree in partnership with Fanatics. Tons of awesome gear there. Pretty much every NWSL team that there is. Great gear that is available to you for purchase. So go check that out. Link in the show notes of this episode. All right, man. I think we did it. Let's see. Time check. We were shooting for 40 minutes. We're roughly around 70 minutes. That's okay. I think we packed a lot in. There was a lot to cover this week, NWSL wise. But with that said, anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
No, I think that's it. It was a good week, man. And you know what? In traditional NWSL style, like, you know, this started as a UEFA Women's Champions League show, but then we branched out and started covering the NWSL. We needed 30 minutes of stoppage time. So that's just kind of what the match required. And so here we are.
Yep. Let's go to PKs. All right, man. This has been another episode into the channel. Thank you for hanging out. If you enjoyed the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, make sure you're kicking with us each and every single week, twice a week at least. I think at this point, like if you liked, subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. We want to hear from you. We love hearing from you. Links to all of our socials, except one in the show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my host as well, Mr. Grand Eagle, for Champions League, U.S. Women's National Team, NWSL, Top Syrian, Damos Fenskin, doesn't matter. My guys out here shifting gears like Rose Kawasi, and I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. You know, we're all over this global footballing world. So if the occasional 1 hour and 13-minute show has to happen with no editing, even when somebody thinks that there could be some editing, but it's the guy who doesn't do the editing, that's totally understandable. We power through no matter what. We appreciate you guys rocking with us, and we will see you all next time.